The alien doctor stared at the human lying on the medical bed. The scanner showed broken bones, torn muscles, and damaged organs. The doctor's tentacles trembled with confusion. This human should not be conscious. This human should not be talking. This human definitely should not be trying to get up. "Please remain still," the doctor said through the translator device. "Your body has sustained critical damage. You require immediate stasis and regeneration treatment." The human, a soldier named Williams, shook his head. "Can't do that, Doc. My squad needs me. Just patch me up enough to walk." The doctor's skin changed to a deep purple color that indicated extreme distress. "You do not understand. You have 3 broken ribs. Your left leg has a fractured femur. Internal bleeding is present. You should be unconscious from pain." Williams grimaced but pushed himself up on his elbows. "Yeah, and hurts like hell. But I've had worse. Come on, Doc. My team is still out there. Give me some painkillers and a splint. I'll manage." Manage? The word made no sense in the doctor's language. The translator struggled to find an equivalent. "You cannot manage critical injuries. You must heal first." "Don't have time to heal. War doesn't wait for us to feel better." Williams swung his legs off the bed, hissing through his teeth as pain shot through his body. "Look, I appreciate the concern, but humans don't work the way you think we do." The doctor had studied many species during his long career. He understood biology, chemistry, and the limits of organic bodies. Every species he had ever treated followed the same basic rules. Sufficient damage meant the body shut down. It was a survival mechanism. The body forced rest to allow healing. Except humans apparently did not follow this rule. Williams stood up, putting weight on his broken leg. The doctor watched in horror as the human's face twisted with obvious agony, but the leg held. The human took a step, then another. Each movement should have been impossible. The pain signals alone should have overwhelmed the nervous system. "Stop," the doctor begged. "You are causing additional damage. You will injure yourself permanently." "Maybe," Williams admitted. "But if I don't get back out there, my friends will die. I can deal with a limp later. Can't deal with losing my squad." He reached for his armor, which lay in pieces on a nearby table. The doctor's medical training warred with what he was witnessing. This went against everything he understood about biology. How is your species even alive? How did you survive? Evolution with such disregard for self-preservation? Williams laughed, though it came out as more of a cough. "That's the thing, Doc. We survived because of this, not despite it. Earth is a nightmare planet. Everything there wants to kill you. Weather, animals, diseases, other humans. We learned early that sitting around waiting to heal meant dying. The ones who kept moving, even when hurt, were the ones who made it." The doctor processed this information. He had read about Earth in the databases. It was classified as a high-danger world. Most species would never have evolved intelligence there. The environmental pressures were too extreme. "Your planet shaped you into this," the doctor said slowly. "You are not ignoring damage. You simply have a higher threshold for acceptable damage." "Not really. It hurts just as much for us as it probably does for you. We just can't afford to stop." Williams finished strapping on the pieces of armor he could manage. "Look, my whole species is like this. We've got athletes who compete with broken bones, workers who do their jobs with chronic pain, parents who take care of kids while sick as dogs. It's not that we're tougher. We just don't have the luxury of stopping." The doctor made a decision that would haunt him for days. He retrieved a medical kit and began applying emergency treatments. Not the full regeneration therapy that would have been proper, but quick field medicine. Stabilizers for the internal bleeding. A powered brace for the broken leg. Nerve blockers for the worst of the pain. "This is against all medical ethics," the doctor muttered as he worked. "I am enabling you to harm yourself further. You're helping me save my friends. That's good ethics where I come from. Williams tested the brace, nodding with satisfaction. This is good work, Doc. I can move on this. You understand that you may never fully heal if you continue fighting? I understand. I also understand that my squad leader is out there with a wounded leg, too. And our medic is probably trying to treat people while nursing 3 bullet wounds. And our engineer is definitely rigging explosives despite having a concussion. That's just how we operate. The doctor felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. He had always believed that intelligence meant moving beyond base survival instincts. That civilization required accepting limitations and working within them. Humans seem to have built their entire civilization on the opposite principle. They acknowledged limitations and then ignored them anyway. The rest of the galaxy fears humans, the doctor said quietly. We thought it was because you were warriors. We thought it was because you were aggressive. But that is not it, is it? Williams paused at the door, looking back. We're not more aggressive than anyone else. We're just persistent. You can't kill us by breaking us, because we were already broken when we started. Every human you meet is carrying damage. Physical, mental, emotional. We all got scars. We all got pain. We all got something wrong with us. We just decided that doesn't mean we stop living. The doctor watched as the human limped out of the medical bay, moving toward the sound of gunfire in the distance. The soldier's gait was uneven, his breathing labored, his body compromised in a dozen ways. By any reasonable medical standard, he should have been in intensive care. Instead, he was going back to war. The doctor began preparing for more casualties. If one human operated this way, likely all of them did. The medical bay would need more supplies, more surgical equipment, more stabilizers and braces and field medicine. Because humans would not stop coming, would not stop fighting, would not stop functioning no matter what damage they sustained. Hours later, Williams returned. He was supporting another soldier, equally damaged, equally determined. Behind them came more humans, a ragged line of wounded warriors who had refused to stop until the objective was complete. The doctor and his staff worked through the night, mending bodies that should not have been able to move, treating injuries that should have been fatal, and slowly coming to understand a terrible truth. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But they were something possibly more dangerous. They were unkillable by any method that did not actually kill them. And even then, the doctor suspected they would probably try to keep going for a while. As dawn broke over the battlefield, the doctor looked out at the human soldiers. Some were bandaged. Some were in braces. Some were missing limbs but moving on prosthetics. All of them were functional. All of them were ready to continue. The galaxy had been wrong about humans. Their threat was not violence. It was persistence. The absolute refusal to accept that being broken meant being done. The doctor sent a message to the Galactic Medical Council. We need to revise human medical protocols. Standard treatment assumes patients will rest during recovery. Human patients do not rest. They continue operating while healing. This is not stubbornness. This is biology shaped by a world that never allowed them to stop. The response came back quickly. Is this sustainable for them? The doctor looked at Williams, who was already checking his equipment for the next mission, despite barely being able to stand. Sustainable? Probably not. But they have been doing it for millions of years. I suspect they will continue doing it for millions more. This is not a choice for them. This is what being human means. The ship drifted in space, engines dead, life support failing. Inside, the crew of the merchant vessel Lucky Break waited to die. They had sent distress signals for 3 days. No response had come. The ship's alien crew, members of the Vethrian species, had already entered the sleep state that preceded death. It was natural for them. When hope was lost, when resources depleted, their bodies shut down peacefully. The human engineer, a woman called Reeves, had other ideas. She dragged herself through the dark corridors, pulling a toolkit that weighed almost as much as she did. Her hands were frostbitten from working in the unheated sections of the ship. Her lips were blue from oxygen deprivation. Every breath came hard in the thin atmosphere. She had not slept in 4 days. She reached the engine room and began working. The ship's computer AI, still functioning on emergency power, spoke to her. "Engineer Reeves, your biological readings are critical. You should enter hibernation mode with the rest of the crew. Rescue probability is now less than 2%. 2% is not zero," Reeves said through cracked lips. Her fingers fumbled with the tools, too cold to grip properly. She dropped a wrench, cursed, picked it up again. "Your body temperature has dropped 3 degrees. You are suffering from hypothermia. Continued activity will result in organ failure. Organs can fail later. Right now, I need to fix this engine." She pulled open an access panel, revealing the damaged power coupling that had started this whole mess. 3 days ago, a micrometeorite had punched through the hull. The automatic systems had sealed the breach, but not before the impact had fried the main power relay. The AI had calculated that repairs were impossible with available resources. It had recommended the crew enter hibernation to preserve oxygen and warmth for as long as possible. The Vethrian crew had agreed. Their species was practical. When facing certain death, they chose peaceful sleep over prolonged suffering. Reeves had ignored the recommendation and started working. She had already performed what the AI called minor miracles. She had rerouted power from non-essential systems. She had fabricated replacement parts from kitchen equipment and furniture. She had repaired 3 different critical systems using materials that were technically not compatible but worked anyway through sheer determination and creative engineering. Now, she faced the biggest problem. The power coupling needed a specific rare metal to function. The ship did not carry spares. The nearest station was 2 weeks away at full engine power, which they did not have. "Aye, give me a list of everything on this ship made from iridium alloy." The AI processed for a moment. 3 items contained the necessary alloy: the captain's ceremonial award plaque, the navigation computer's processing core, and the medical bay's surgical laser assembly. Which can we live without? All 3 items are essential. The navigation core is required for any rescue operation to locate us. The medical laser is necessary to treat your advancing frostbite and hypothermia. The ceremonial plaque has deep cultural significance to the Vethrian crew. Reeves laughed, which turned into a coughing fit. Cultural significance does not matter if we are dead. How much iridium in the plaque? Insufficient for a complete repair. You would need at least 2 of the 3 items. So, navigation and the plaque then. I will live without the medical laser. Engineer Reeves, you require immediate medical attention. Without treatment, you will lose functionality in your extremities within 6 hours. Permanent damage is highly probable. Probable is not certain. She pulled herself to her feet, using the wall for support. Her legs barely held her weight. I will deal with my fingers later. First, we need power. She made her way to the bridge, moving through the cold darkness with a handheld light. The Vethrian captain lay in his chair, hibernating peacefully, his scales dulled to a gray color that indicated deep sleep. She took the ceremonial plaque from the wall. It was a beautiful thing, engraved with symbols of achievement and honor. She brought it back to the engine room and began melting it. Down. The AI continued its protests. This is irrational behavior. You are sacrificing your health and the captain's treasured possession for a repair. That has a 37% chance of success. You should hibernate with the crew and preserve resources. 37% is better than 0. Reeves worked methodically, her movements slow but precise. Her hands shook from cold and exhaustion. She dropped tools twice. Had to restart a welding process 3 times. But she continued. The AI tried a different approach. May I ask why you persist? I have studied human behavior, but I do not understand this. You are choosing certain suffering over peaceful sleep. This seems contrary to survival instinct. Reeves paused in her work. You do not understand humans then. We do not give up. It is not about rational calculations. It is about the fact that while I am still breathing, I can still work. And while I can still work, there is still a chance. But the suffering is temporary. Death is permanent. I will take temporary pain if it means a chance at survival. She finished assembling the makeshift power coupling. It was ugly, barely functional, held together with improvised welds and prayer. It should not work. She installed it anyway. AI tried to route power through the new coupling. The AI complied. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, deep in the ship's systems, something hummed. Lights flickered. Dim emergency lighting came on in the engine room. Power coupling is holding, the AI said, and for the first time, its synthetic voice held something like surprise. It should not work, but it does. You have restored 15% power. 15% is enough for long-range communications, Reeves said. She was already moving toward the communications bay, her damaged hands clutching the toolkit. Engineer Reeves, you must rest now. You have achieved the objective. We can send a distress signal and wait for rescue. Cannot rest yet. Need to boost the signal. 15% power will not reach far enough. Additional work is not necessary. A weak signal is better than no signal. A weak signal that no one hears is the same as no signal. Reeves reached the communications bay and began pulling apart the system. Need to sacrifice some systems to boost the transmitter range. You are in no condition to perform complex electronics work. Your fine motor control has degraded by 43%. Then it will take me longer. So what? She began rerouting circuits, her frostbitten fingers struggling with the delicate work. She dropped components. Made mistakes. Had to restart. But she continued, piece by piece, connection by connection. 6 hours later, she had created a communication system that technically should not function. It used twice the power it was designed for. It was missing 3 critical safety components. It would probably burn out after a single use. Send the distress signal, she ordered. The AI did. The makeshift transmitter screamed into the void, burning through power reserves, sending a single desperate message to any ship within range. Then, exactly as predicted, it overloaded and died in a shower of sparks. Reeves slumped against the wall. Now I can rest. Engineer Reeves, your biological readings are at critical levels. I am not certain you will survive until rescue arrives, even if the signal was received. Then I will die trying. Better than dying sleeping. Her eyes closed. The cold and exhaustion finally overwhelmed her. She collapsed onto the floor of the communications bay. The AI monitored the human's vital signs, calculating survival probability at less than 20%. It did not understand. The human had worked herself to the edge of death for a small chance at survival. She had sacrificed her health, possibly permanently, for uncertain results. It was illogical. It was irrational. It was remarkably, undeniably human. 3 days later, a patrol ship picked up the distress signal. They found the lucky break drifting dark and cold. The Vethrian crew was safely hibernating. The human engineer was barely alive, suffering from severe hypothermia, frostbite, exhaustion, and multiple system failures. But she was alive. And so was everyone else. The patrol ship's doctor, a member of the logical and practical Krell species, examined Reeves in the medical bay. You have caused permanent damage to yourself. You will lose parts of 3 fingers. Your cardiovascular system has been compromised. You will have chronic health issues for the rest of your life. Reeves, awake now and warming in the medical pod, smiled weakly. But I saved the crew. You could have hibernated. Rescue would have come eventually. Maybe, maybe not. I chose to act instead of hoping. The doctor studied her for a long moment. Humans are strange. You sacrifice your future for an uncertain present. We sacrifice an uncertain future for a chance to have any future at all, Reeves corrected. That is just what we do. The Vethrian captain visited her later. He had been told what she had done, what she had sacrificed, including his ceremonial plaque. He stood by her bedside, his scales showing colors of respect and sorrow. You destroyed my greatest honor, he said quietly, and saved my life with it. I do not know whether to be angry or grateful. Be alive, Reeves suggested. Everything else is just details. The captain's scales shifted to a warm gold color that indicated deep affection. You humans are mad, but I am glad you are mad in our favor. Reeves closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the medical pod seep into her damaged body. She would recover, mostly. She would have scars. She would have pain. She would have limitations, but she would have life. And so would the crew she had saved. That was all that mattered. The colony ship Endurance hung in orbit around the new world. Below, the surface beckoned with promise and danger. The planet was rated marginally habitable. Breathable atmosphere, survivable temperatures, adequate water. It also had toxic plant life, dangerous predators, and microbes that cause severe illness in most species. The Galactic Survey Corps had classified it as unsuitable for colonization. They recommended passing it by and searching for better options. The human colonists decided to land. Anyway, Commander Okafor stood in the landing bay, addressing the 500 colonists who would be the first wave down to the surface. You all know what we are facing. The odds are against us. The environment is hostile. Many of you will get sick. Some may die. Any of you can stay on the ship and wait for us to find an easier world. Not a single person moved to leave. Okafor nodded, unsurprised. Then let us go build a home. The alien observer, a Tyrellian scientist named Kess, watched the proceedings with fascination and horror. His species had been exploring space for 10,000 years. They had colonized 72 perfect worlds. They had never attempted to settle anywhere that was not ideal. This is suicide, Kess said to the human biologist standing next to him. Your people will suffer greatly. The biologist, Dr. Park, shrugged. Probably. But suffering is temporary. A colony is permanent. We chose the temporary pain for the permanent gain. Your species values outcome over process. Our species values survival. Everything else is just details. Dr. Park picked up her equipment pack. You staying on the ship? I am supposed to observe and document human colonization methods. Then you better come with us. Cannot document from orbit. Kess found himself in a landing shuttle surrounded by humans who were calmly discussing the diseases they would likely catch, the injuries they would probably sustain, and the hardships they would definitely face. They spoke of these things the way other species might discuss weather patterns, casually, inevitably. The landing was rough. The planet's atmosphere created turbulence that threw the shuttle around like a toy. 3 colonists broke bones during the descent. They set their own fractures and continued unloading equipment once they landed. Within the first week, 30% of the colonists developed respiratory infections from the alien microbes. They continued working while coughing and feverish. Within 2 weeks, Half the colony had experienced allergic reactions to the local plant life. They adapted their clothing and kept building shelters. Cass documented everything, his horror growing daily. By every reasonable metric, the colony should have failed within a month. The colonists were constantly sick, frequently injured, and always exhausted. The work was brutal. The conditions were terrible. The colony thrived anyway. Cass watched a woman named Chun work in the fields, despite running a fever of 40 degrees. She was planting crops genetically modified to survive in the harsh soil. Her hands were covered in blisters from the toxic plant oils that contaminated everything. She had lost 5 kilograms in 2 weeks. She was also singing while she worked. "Why do you sing?" Cass asked, genuinely confused. Chun looked up, surprised. "Because singing makes the work go faster. And because we are winning." "Winning? You are clearly suffering." "We are suffering and winning. They are not mutually exclusive." She went back to planting. 2 months ago, this planet was empty. Now it has crops. It has shelters. It has people. The planet is trying to kill us, but we are taking root anyway. That is victory. Cass tried to process this logic. But at what cost? Less cost than giving up and running. Less cost than searching for 20 more years for a perfect world that might not exist. Chun finished her row and moved to start another, her movement slow but steady. This planet will be home. Not because it is easy, because we will make it home through sheer bloody-minded determination. That night, Cass attended the colony meeting. Commander Okafor reviewed the statistics. Illness rates were holding steady at 50%. 3 serious injuries in the past week. Equipment failures were constant in the harsh conditions. Resource consumption was higher than projected. "We are behind schedule," Okafor announced. "So we need to work harder. I need volunteers for extended shifts in the construction crew." Every hand went up, including hands belonging to people who were visibly sick or injured. Okafor selected 20 colonists, making sure to include some who were healthier than others. "The rest of you, get sleep. You will get your turn to volunteer tomorrow." As the meeting dispersed, Cass approached the commander. "Why do they volunteer?" "They are already pushed beyond reasonable limits." "Because the work needs doing," Okafor said simply. "And because humans do not wait for perfect conditions to act. We act despite conditions and make them work. But the damage to your people will heal. Or will not. Either way, the colony needs building now, not after we are all rested and healthy." Okafor looked out the window at the harsh alien landscape. "My ancestors built civilizations in deserts, on frozen tundras, on mountains where the air was too thin to breathe easily. They built on islands that hurricanes destroyed regularly. They built in swamps full of disease and jungles full of predators. Earth was not a kind world, Cass. It taught us that you build where you are, not where you wish you were." 3 months into the colony effort, a supply ship arrived with observers from the Galactic Council. They had come to document the expected failure of the human colony. They found instead a growing settlement with functioning infrastructure, productive fields, and permanent structures. They also found a population that was universally damaged. Every colonist showed signs of chronic illness, injury, or exhaustion. By galactic standards, the entire colony should have been evacuated for medical treatment. By human standards, they were doing fine. The council representative, a being of energy and logic named Vorn, asked for explanation. "How are you achieving this? Your people are clearly compromised. Yet productivity exceeds all projections." Dr. Park, who was giving the tour while nursing a broken arm and a persistent cough, explained patiently. "We do not stop working when we are hurt or sick. We adjust our methods and continue. Humans have been doing this for millions of years. It is natural to us, but this is not efficient. It is effective. There is a difference. Efficient means optimal resource usage. Effective means achieving the goal. We chose effective over efficient. Vorn observed the colony for a week. He watched humans work through pain that should have been debilitating. He saw them problem solve while feverish, build while injured, plan while exhausted. It defied all logic about biological limitations. On the final day, he attended another colony meeting. Commander Okafor was announcing new goals. The colony is stable. Now we build for the future. I need volunteers for the mining operation. It will be dangerous, difficult work in the mountains where the air is thin and the conditions are worse than here. Hands went up immediately. Vorn left the planet disturbed and thoughtful. His report to the Galactic Council was brief but profound. Humans do not colonize in spite of being broken. They colonize because being broken is normal for them. They have turned limitation into method. They have made suffering into strategy. This is not courage or stupidity. This is adaptation to a brutal homeworld that taught them to continue regardless of cost. Are they a threat? The council asked. They are inevitable, Vorn replied. You cannot stop a species that refuses to acknowledge stopping. You cannot defeat people who treat defeat as temporary inconvenience. Humans will spread through the galaxy, not because they are strong, but because they do not require strength. They only require persistence. Back on the colony, Chun finished her shift in the fields and joined others for the evening meal. Someone asked how she was feeling. She admitted her fever had broken, but her hands were worse from the plant toxins. She would probably lose some sensation in her fingertips permanently. So what will you do? Another colonist asked. Chun smiled. Adapt. Learn to work with less sensation. Maybe switch to different tasks. You work with what you have. Around the table, others nodded. They all carried damage. They all faced limitations. They all continued working, because that was what humans did. They broke, they adapted, they persisted. They built homes in places that tried to kill them. They made families in conditions that should have scattered them. They created civilization despite every disadvantage, not because they were exceptional, because they were human. And being human meant refusing to let being broken stop you from living. The peace conference was failing. Representatives from 12 species sat around the diplomatic table, while representatives from 12 species sat around the diplomatic table, arguing about territory and resources and ancient grievances. The war had lasted 5 years, killed millions, and devastated 4 star systems. Everyone wanted peace. No one wanted to compromise. The human mediator, Ambassador Torres, listened to another hour of circular arguments. She had been at this for 3 months. Her colleagues had given up and gone home. The other species diplomats were preparing to do the same. War would continue. More would die. Torres decided to try something different. I want to tell you a story, she said, interrupting a heated exchange between the Krell and Valorian delegations, about a place on Earth called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The delegates quieted, curious despite themselves. The human was usually so formal, so diplomatic. This casual storytelling approach was unexpected. Hundreds of years ago on Earth, my people suffered through terrible conflicts. Apartheid, genocides, civil wars. Millions died. Millions more carried trauma. When the conflicts finally ended, everyone wanted justice. Everyone wanted revenge. Everyone wanted the other side punished. Torres stood and walked to the window overlooking the station gardens. But my ancestors realized something. Justice without reconciliation meant continuing the cycle. Someone had to break it. Someone had to choose building the future over punishing the past. Easy to say, the Krell delegate hissed. Harder to do when you have lost family to the war. I know, Torres said quietly. I lost my wife in the attack on Luna Station. My daughter lost her legs in the bombing of New Berlin. My sister died defending a medical ship. I have every reason to want revenge. The room went silent. The delegates had not known this. Torres never spoke of her personal losses. But revenge does not bring them back. Punishment does not heal wounds. Justice might satisfy anger, but it does not build peace. She turned back to face them. So I am asking you to do something very hard. I am asking you to be broken and build anyway. What does that mean? The Valorian delegate asked, its crystalline form dimming with confusion. Why should we? The Krell delegate demanded. Why should we be the ones to sacrifice? Because someone has to go first. Someone has to say the cycle stops here. That might as well be us. Torres returned to her seat. Let me tell you what humans learned. We learned that everyone is broken by conflict. Everyone carries trauma. The question is not how to become unbroken. The question is how to function while broken and build something better than what we had before. She pulled up images on the central display. This is Hiroshima. This is Berlin. This is Rwanda. This is Bosnia. Cities destroyed by human violence. Populations traumatized by human cruelty. Every generation of humans thought their conflicts were too bitter to reconcile, their grievances too deep to forgive. And yet, the Valorian prompted, and yet we built. We reconciled, not perfectly, not completely, but enough. We learned to live with former enemies. We learned to work with people who had hurt us. We learned that being broken together was better than being broken apart. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Torres was asking them to do something that felt impossible. To let go of righteous anger. To compromise with those who had caused pain. To build with people they had every reason to hate. I cannot speak for my people on this, the Krell delegate said. They would call me a traitor. They might, Torres agreed. The first ones to choose peace are always called traitors by those who want to keep fighting. But someone has to be first. Someone has to stand up and say enough. And if we choose this path and it fails? The Turellian asked. If we compromise and they take advantage? Then we deal with that when it happens. But choosing to keep fighting because peace might fail is choosing certain continued suffering over possible future problems. That is not logical. The Valorian delegate pulsed thoughtfully. You are asking us to function while damaged, to build while hurting. This is the human way, is it not? It is the human way, Torres confirmed. We learned it because Earth gave us no choice. War, disaster, disease, tragedy. They all broke us. We had to learn to function anyway or die. We chose functioning, but the cost, the Krell delegate protested. The personal cost of working with those who have caused such pain. Torres nodded slowly. The cost is high. I will not lie about that. Every time I sit at this table with representatives of species whose people killed my family, it costs me. Every compromise I suggest feels like betraying my losses. Every agreement feels like saying their deaths did not matter. Then, why do you continue? The Turellian asked softly. Because my wife would want peace more than revenge. Because my daughter needs a future where she can live without fear. Because my sister died protecting civilians, not warriors, and she believed in protecting life above taking it. Torres's voice cracked slightly. I continue because being broken does not excuse me from doing what is right. It just makes it harder. The delegates sat in silence for a long time. Outside the window, species from across the galaxy walked together in the station gardens. Old enemies and new allies. Species that had fought wars in the past but chose to build peace in the present. The Krell delegate finally spoke. If we agree to this, if we choose this path, we will be broken. Our people will be broken. How do we live with that? One day at a time, Torres said. You wake up. You do the work. You build despite the pain. You compromise despite the anger. You make peace despite the grief. Some days will be harder than others. Some days you will want to give up. But you continue because the alternative is worse. And eventually, the breaks heal. Not perfectly. There will be scars. There will be chronic pain. There will be things that never work quite the same way again. But there will also be peace. There will be trade. There will be cooperation. There will be a future that is better than the present. The Valorian delegate's form brightened with decision. I will recommend to my people that we accept the compromise terms. Not because I want to, because it is necessary. One by one, the other delegates agreed. Not happily, not easily, but they agreed. They would take the terms back to their governments. They would recommend acceptance. They would choose the difficult path of building peace while broken, rather than the familiar path of continuing war. Torres spent the next week finalizing the agreement. Every session was painful. Every compromise felt like a betrayal. But slowly, piece by piece, the peace treaty came together. Not a perfect peace, not a peace without cost, but peace nonetheless. When the final documents were signed, the Krell delegate approached Torres privately. I must ask, does it get easier? Working with the pain? No, Torres said honestly. It gets familiar. You learn to carry it. You learn to function despite it. But it does not get easier. Then how do you continue? Because the alternative is unacceptable. Because my daughter deserves better. Because the millions who died deserve to have their deaths mean something. Because being broken does not excuse me from building a better future. Torres looked at the signed treaty. And because humans learned long ago that you do not wait until you feel ready. You do not wait until the pain stops. You do not wait for perfect conditions. You do the work that needs doing when it needs doing, regardless of how you feel. The Krell was silent for a moment. Your species is strange, but perhaps wise in ways we are not. Not wiser, just more experienced with being broken. Earth taught us hard lessons. We are just passing them on. The peace treaty held. Not perfectly. There were violations and disputes and moments when it seemed like war would resume. But the delegates had learned the human lesson. They continued working through the pain. They continued building despite the breaks. They continued choosing difficult peace over easy war. Years later, Torres retired from diplomatic service. Her daughter, walking on advanced prosthetic legs, asked her what she was most proud of. Not the treaty, Torres said. The treaty was just words on paper. What I am proud of is that we all chose to be broken together rather than break each other further. We chose to build while hurting rather than hurt while building. That is the hardest thing anyone can do. Is that what being human means? Her daughter asked. Torres thought about it. Being human means functioning while broken. It means carrying damage and continuing anyway. It means accepting that nothing will ever be perfect and building the best possible future despite that. It means choosing,